Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Okay, everybody, welcome back. This is Lori with the Produce Moms Podcast. Today's a special day, episode 200. Woohoo! So literally just coming at you from my dining room table in Indianapolis, and Helena's with me. Helena from the Produce Moms team, and someone who's been a big part of the Produce Moms journey for, really since the beginning, like even back in the Indy Fruit era. Helena and I worked together. She was one of my coworkers who often would volunteer to support some of the grassroots things that we did when the Produce Moms was a brand property and owned by Indianapolis Fruit Company. And we were, really, really infant stages. And she was obviously there as a coworker and peer when I took my leap and bought the Produce Moms from Indy Fruit. And then probably about 7 months into business ownership, I put on my Facebook page, hey, I'm looking for a little bit of help at TPM, and I'm going to go to Starbucks and work, and I'll be there for like 4 hours. And I said the date, the Starbucks I was going to. I said, if anybody is interested in learning more about the Produce Moms and think you might want to get involved with what we do and be a part-time employee, then stop by. I'd love to buy you coffee and talk over things with you. And oh my gosh, imagine my smile when in walks Helena to that Starbucks.
Gosh, I remember that day so well. It wasn't that far off when I had just had Hunter, my firstborn. So I was also taking a leap. I had just left the corporate world, but knew, in my heart that I wanted to continue working and that I wanted to make a name for myself and start my own business, helping entrepreneurs take their leaps and assist them in the hardship of what it is to grow their business, but also do what they love, but give that opportunity to them to be able to focus on that and help them kind of take some of that work off of their shoulders. So that was kind of my leap as well, going in with the newborn and knowing my capabilities and kind of what I was able to offer. But I knew from the beginning that I loved the Produce Moms. I knew exactly what it was from the start, like Lori said, from Indy Fruit days. So I was just excited to see where we were both going with it.
Yeah,
so.
It's been a wonderful work alignment, and Helena has a really big role in what we do. And most definitely as a podcast listener, out of every single person on this team, she probably works the hardest. I mean, yes, I work hard hosting the show, but really that's kind of like, that's the fun part.
I would say
yeah, so. I mean, Helena does all the preparations for every episode. So she essentially serves as the director of our podcast here. She helps me with scouting, guests and vetting guests and making sure that we're always staying true to what this brand is all about and what the podcast is all about. I mean, we are pretty unapologetic about our niche here. It's about fruits and vegetables. We've had some tough moments where we've had to tell people who are worthy podcast guests, like, sorry, we're not the right podcast for you, but go find yourself a podcast because you deserve an interview.
Right,
but,
for sure.
I
think this podcast has really become my baby. I mean, I really didn't know much about the podcast world, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I've done a few podcasts and have been familiar with like being in like the seat of a sound booth and things like that back in my days in California doing voiceovers, but never really knew what it was like to run an entire podcast. And it's hard work, but it's so much fun.
It's a lot of hard work.
It is.
So I ran some numbers today. we are connecting. We're sitting around my table here. It's January 31st. This is going to publish. Well, Helena probably knows the exact date. It's going to publish as, let's see. So that would be February 9th is today. So that'll be episode 200. All right.
Yeah.
So, Helena, I just ran our January data, which obviously doesn't include all of ours. But did you know that in the month of January 2022, we had more unique downloads of our podcast in 1 month than what we had in the entire year of 2018.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. So Lori is definitely the dashboard girl. Like, she's behind the computer, running the numbers. I'm more of the, hey, let me sit back and make sure we have our guests lined up. The questions are ready to go. We have the schedule and everything is prepped. So she's definitely the numbers girl. So to hear that, that's amazing. And again, like a big thank you to our listeners who are jumping on, they're subscribing, they're rating us.
Oh my God, I knew you were going to say that. Helena every week reminds me to talk about rating and subscribing.
It's so important. She never says it. I'm like, I'm going to choke you. Say it because it's so important. It really does. Like she said, she just gave us that information, that data, and that's all because of you guys doing just a few simple steps that are really helping the podcast grow.
It'll be a real big milestone, Helena. We might actually have like a podcast cocktail party when this happens. When we have more downloads to the podcast than we have unique visitors to the website.
Oh God,
that's my next big audacious goal. So
I want to be popping champagne for that.
And the good stuff too. We're not going to CVS for that champagne.
Right. Do you ever? Really though?
I shop value on a lot of things, but yeah, you're right. It's not usually my champagne or my wine. But all right. So let's talk about. I guess we should probably talk about what's ahead for TPM, what's ahead for the podcast, right? Like we kind of like to do that on these milestone episodes. The big thing, and I hope that it's certified. Like I hope the announcement is formal by the time this publishes. I've been logging into that B Corp dashboard every single day. You guys literally working on that since early January 2021, and we are just in the home stretch. Not traveling. There's a big organic trade event happening, and I believe it's this week in Florida. I'm not going because I'm staying hyper-focused on finishing up our B Corp certification. Right now, the ball's in their court, not in ours, but I do think that we're going to have, we're putting together how we're going to celebrate that milestone with our community, and it's going to be tremendous. Like, we don't have a choice. We worked way too hard on this.
Oh, for sure. I'm so excited. So for those who don't know, not only am I the podcast director, but I'm Lori's executive assistant too. So I have access to her email, and I am like, I don't know. I'm like constantly in there just like searching for a B Corp notification. Like, right. Okay, can I be the first so that I could call her and be like, guess what? It's done. But
Helena does drop a lot of those happy surprises on me, and sometimes the bad stuff too. But usually when she calls me about an email, it's because of good news.
I try to make it be that way. Yes. Sometimes I'm like, have you checked your emails today? I flagged it for you, but you might want to be right. You might want to be sitting down with a glass of wine for that one.
Oh my gosh. Well, Helena, I will say that the B Corp has been such a worthy journey. And I think that TPM, we just naturally align with it because the premise of B Corp is it's a certification that's rooted in the UN sustainability goals, sustainable development goals. And, a lot of the values that are part of B Corp that you actually certify, you provide the data to defend, like, yes, we are operating in an environment where before we make any decision, all of our stakeholders are taken into consideration. So it means that you are a business that's a force for good, not just a business that is focused on profit. Of course, profit's important, but you have to make sure that all of your decisions take into account all of your stakeholders, that you are operating in an environmentally friendly way. And really, as I learn more about from the governance to the employees and workforce to how you treat the community, the environment, etc. It's the values of agriculture for me. Like this was not a new concept. Rather, this is an opportunity for us to validate that, yes, we bring forward the values of agriculture every single day in what we do. And it's a point of huge differentiation for the produce moms and, you know, our competitive set.
Right.
We have competitors. Everyone has competition. It makes us better. And as I evaluate my competitors each and every year, I think, how can I further differentiate and further take this business in a direction that is, you know, not like everything else that's out there? Like, how is the Produce Moms different, better, special, and unique always? That is 100% my goal. And I felt strongly, and on the heels of the 2022, you know, just shell shock with the pandemic, I thought we got to do something big in 2021. And
can't get any bigger than this.
B Corp.
I'm so excited.
It is super exciting. I mean, less than 5,000 businesses worldwide carry that certification.
So crazy.
We will be among the first 10 in the state of Indiana. I mean, it's really exciting.
Gosh.
And in agriculture, there's a relatively small footprint for fruit and veg. I mean, in dairy, you see quite a few, like Tillamook, one of our favorite dairy products, Vermont Creamery, Cabot Creamery out of Vermont. Like those are all big dairy brands and co-ops that are B Corp certified and have been for a handful of years. So,
and this sounds silly because I don't know, prior to us going full-fledged on B Corp, like I didn't know a ton about it. Like I finally looked at the website, but what stands out to me and what's so crazy for us is like we don't sell the actual produce. Like so for us to be getting B Corp certified is even that much more special to me because I'm like, we're not selling anything.
Well, and you know, we're essentially, yes, we're a lifestyle brand, right? We're working on, we are an emerging lifestyle brand. We have those consumer packaged products available nationwide at grocery retail. Thank you so much to our brand partners that have worked with us and the licensing and co-branding opportunities. But really, the way most folks get to know the Produce Moms is through our media platforms.
Right.
And in an era where I think, you know, I do think that there's a need for transparency and responsibility as it relates to media. And that's what the B Corp certification is all about.
Right.
It's transparency. It's declaring your values, and it's living by those values each and every day. So one of the things I'm most excited about is you don't have to do anything. Once you get through the certification, you can promote it however you want. But one thing that we're working on is an impact page for the website. And on the impact page, something, and Kristen and I worked on this last week, the we are and we are not. Those statements, like what is the Produce Moms? Well, we are not a blogger. We are not an influencer. We are not. And, you know, and that's difficult because a lot of people are like, well, then what are you? Well, we are a movement. We are a community. Absolutely. We are rooted in the values of agriculture and promoting domestic food security because I'm going to say it again, Helena.
Do it.
Food security is national security. I say it every episode, I feel like. But if there's one thing that the Produce Moms podcast teaches you, I really do hope it's that. It's so important that we empower our farmers. You know, every farm that is, you know, domestic, of course. And there's so many farms that we work with, too, where, you know, especially in the world of fresh produce, where you have to follow the harvest and the availability follows the sun. You know, those farms in North Central, South America are all very important in our domestic food security here in the U.S. So, but hey, put on my Global Women Fresh hat, and
for sure,
this is all about, this is a global movement too, and we are very thankful for all the listeners we have in that international footprint. The Produce Moms podcast is our most global platform. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. And kind of just bouncing off of that and what's to come. And for our listeners who haven't been able to catch it, we're hoping, and I'm hoping, we can continue to find guests to continue to talk about the supply chain crisis and everything that's going on. And I know that in March we have a really exciting series to celebrate women's history. So like, I love that. I love that we can continue to do that. And if you guys have any ideas for us, obviously shoot them our way. You could hit up Lori or myself.
Yeah, I mean, I say my email in every episode at the end, but Helena has also told me no one listens to that closer at the end.
I mean, do you?
I don't know if they do.
Do you? I don't.
I know.
My bad.
Just close it out. Well, it's Lori at theproducemoms.com, but Helena, I think I actually even set up an email, podcast at theproducemoms.com.
Okay, who is that going to?
I think you.
All right, so shoot us an email there. Let us know. What are you listening to? What do you want to hear at the Produce Moms podcast? Because
it has to come back to our mission.
Yes,
which is to get more fruits and vegetables on every table. But that's as we've proven week after week on this show, it's a broad mission that involves a lot of different points of views, lot of different professions, a lot of different strategies. No idea is too big or too small. We do obviously have a production standard. This doesn't happen often, but we have gone through the process of recording shows, even producing them with James, he's our podcast producer. But then when we listen back to him, we're like, nah, just doesn't really fit our standard, doesn't really fit the mold, doesn't really drive home the mission, or, the audio quality wasn't good enough. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And Helena's a huge catalyst for that. So we say all are welcome to apply, and they are. We even have like a Google form that kind of starts that process. But
yeah, for sure. We would love to hear if you have a friend or anyone in the business that you're thinking like, man, they would fit perfect into this podcast. Send them our way, because worst case scenario, we just have a small conversation and figure out if it's a good fit. And you just never know. I would love, love, love to get more people on the show that can talk about just kids eating. Like, I think right now I'm struggling with, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they're really particular with their foods now. They never used to be like that. So I'd love to get someone on who can talk to us, like sharing color palettes on plates and like just doing stuff like that for moms who are listening, who are struggling kind of with the same stuff. So let us know what you want to hear. We want to provide that. And we're just super thankful. Yeah,
I agree. And, sometimes it's not a matter of like, and I think that's one reason why the Produce Moms is so refreshing. Our mission is very simplistic. Our mantra, so to say, is very relatable. And it's, hey, let's just get more fruits and vegetables on every table. Each and every time we're choosing to eat, like, fruits and vegetables are there. And that is such a refreshing way and simple way and an inviting way to think about food and health and wellness. I mean, there is so much pressure out there, I feel like, as it relates to our food and our lifestyle. And, I think that the amount of pressure can be, it can be a real turnoff. If you keep it too scientific, it's like no one needs another voice of authority telling them to eat healthier, right?
We all know that, right?
Right. So I do think that our approach has been, hey, the proof's in those numbers.
Right. Exactly.
I evaluate like every day. I start my day with data, website, email, podcast, social media, etc. And the proof is in those numbers, because we are a growing platform. We are continuing to engage and attract new users. And I think it's I think it comes back to the tone of what we do and the relatability to what we publish and produce. So,
and even our guests, like the guests that we have
the
on,
best.
Gosh, they're amazing. I wish we could have them on like all the time, like just over and over.
Well, and it's a lot of
there's so much to share.
I feel like we've also unveiled a lot of unsung heroes in this space.
Absolutely.
There's been something that I had a conversation with one of my male colleagues in the industry, Matt Roy, and he was talking to me, and he said something along the lines of like, oh, well, it's got to feel good to have all these women empowerment initiatives in the industry, and I like cut them off. I'm like, hold up, let me tell you about all of the formalized efforts to elevate women, and how at the end of the day, women are still a really competitive beast,
Right, for sure.
And as an entrepreneur, where my, and Laura, our lovely legal counsel, we call her the boss here
Hi,
at
Laura,
TPM.
if you're listening.
She's the best. Laura has, drilled into my head, kind of with the same cadence that Helena says, like, hey, ask for reviews and ratings and subscribers when you record. But I actually follow Laura's advice a little bit better than Helena's. I'm so bad about that. I'm going to start saying that in the episodes. But Laura's advice has always been like, hey, you are a bootstrapping entrepreneur in an industry that is just absolutely dominated by, multi-century, multi-million, if not billion-dollar enterprises, or multi-decade, I should say. Not very many of our businesses today are over 100 years old, but there is a good portion that are. But anyway, so Laura has advised me, since she has been our legal counsel, which has been a few years, and it's been lovely to have her on the team. She has advised me, like, you really have to protect your IP. Like, your ideas, your programming, like your strategies, that's at this point, until you got more cash in the bank, like that is your business's top value. And it's true. And so coming back to that conversation with Matt, I'm like, look, it is not easy to find a spotlight in a big global industry or a domestic industry that, there's a lot of family-owned businesses and a lot of, and Helena and I both worked at one. It's like you gotta be really
innovative and claw your way your way to get to the top.
It's gonna make me cry if I think about my journey too much, but it wasn't that long ago, Helena, when I took that leap and I borrowed a desk from my aunt, negotiated the laptop from Indy Fruit, literally opened up a checking account with $4,999 from USA Pairs, which was a 12-month scope of work. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to pay the bills with, less than just, $5,000 for a whole year, but that doesn't work. Like, the math doesn't work out. But I had a verbal commitment from Chuck Sinks at Sage Fruit that they'd be working with us. So his verbal commitment, if he was true to his word, which I knew he was, and he obviously has been, I knew that year one of business ownership, worst case scenario, I had approximately $30,000 of revenue. I had 6 figures of acquisition debt, and I just cold called all day long. I mean,
gosh, that's so crazy. So
we're doing crazy.
Just to give you an idea, we're doing a little project for another client, and Lori, myself, and Jody, another girl on our team, we had to do a few cold calls more recently.
Oh,
and it is excruciating to have to get on the phone. And I mean, we weren't even legit. We were not even selling anything. We were just asking for them to do something in return. And it was like pulling teeth. So I can't even imagine getting on the phone and being like, hi, do you want to sign,
listen to my idea.
Listen to my idea. Oh, and by the way, that's going to cost you X amount of money. Do you want to, join now? Like, oh gosh, shoot me now.
Two conversations stood out when I think about that. One was Jim Beagle with the grapery. Fantastic grape growers. Some might argue to say they're the best. They grow all of these amazing, unique hybrid varieties. They were pretty instrumental in the mass commercialization of the cotton candy grape.
I was just going to ask that. I feel like they were the first ones.
They were one of the first domestic growers. Yeah. I mean, they had like the domestic patent on the variety, but now there's a lot more people in that space. But Jim he's a visionary. Doesn't matter who you talk to. If they're growing grapes anywhere in the world, they respect Jim Beagle. And I most definitely hold him to the highest regard. He listened to me. It was just, he gave me probably 40 minutes of his time. And when the conversation ended, he was like, I don't really need your services, but I want to support you. He's like, because I just think it's amazing that you took this leap and that you're counting on this industry to open up, new doors for your business, and in turn take the produce industry into this like new frontier, so to say. And so that conversation most definitely stuck out, and and then the other one would be Johnny Moore with Salad Savoy. He is I've worked with their company for a long time, and we actually worked with them when I was at Indy Fruit, and then I had a conversation with him when we went independent shortly after I bought the business. And oh my gosh, he was just so kind and was like, this is exactly the values of agriculture. You're going to be so successful. He just really instilled this level of confidence in me that I needed. And it was those are two empowering conversations that, changed the trajectory of that early stage, without doubt. I mean, you get 25 people hanging up on you, and then you get one person like, Jim Beagle giving you 40 minutes of their time, and you're like, wow, okay, like this is worth fighting for. I am not crazy.
So how did you go? Because I ended up leaving the Produce Moms from helping Lori. I think I left for maybe 6 months or so. I ended up having my second baby. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of came to the realization, like, our household is changing. Things are changing in my life. Like, I need to put a pause on working completely for now. Even though we had that flexibility, it was just really hard for me raising two babies, and I just needed to stay at home. So I took a pause, and during that pause, literally it felt like I only paused for like a month, but it might have been 6 months, even possibly a year. But between that point to the next, you already had a podcast being set up. Yeah. You and Kristen were working on that. So like, how did that even start?
Well, I talked to Kristen this morning, telling her that we were preparing for this episode. I wish she could have been here, but duty calls for us moms. Her daughter Brooklyn was homesick from school today, so she's at home, right? But no, Kristen, she's another one who's kind of been there since the beginning. And Kristen she's a huge part of our operation. She works more so on client services. So every one of our brand partners knows her really well and loves her as much as we all do. And Kristen, this morning I was telling her, Helena's come over. We're recording podcast number 200. She was like, I cannot believe that. She goes, it feels like just yesterday that you and I, and this quote from Kristen. So she and I were, she said, it feels like just yesterday we were headed down to Nashville to record that first episode. And we actually recorded 4 episodes in Nashville with our former podcast producer, Bryant. He was amazing. Kind of just went off, did his own thing. He's now pursuing his own music career.
That's awesome.
Like most people in Nashville are doing, right? So go Bryant. Really happy for him. And James was on his team, so James is wonderful. He's in a way been with us since the beginning of the show too. James is now our producer. But yeah, what inspired it, just kind of the same way, like in 2012 when I pitched the idea of the Produce Moms blog to my bosses at Indy Fruit. I felt strongly that blogs in 2012 were like, that was the media platform. That was it. And if you weren't there, you soon were going to find yourself scrambling to get there because it was the future of...
Oh, for sure.
And it is. Like, I mean, most, you might feel like you're just visiting a website, but really most websites are blog-based, platforms at this point, especially if there's any sort of consistent publication that's happening on those websites. Well, 2018, I felt the same way about podcasts, so 2018, kind of at the start of the new year, my team knows this. In January of every year, I kind of challenge myself. Right. What is this year's big goal? Like, how are we going to better position this business for strength and prosperity? How are we going to leapfrog our competitors? What is and it can be super, it can be like low hanging fruit, like is what I felt like the podcast was in 2018. It's like, we don't have a podcast and we're essentially a .com. We got to get a podcast. So January 2018, I know, January 2018, I started doing just some real rudimentary grassroots research. Found myself kind of exploiting Facebook, all the Facebook groups that are out there. I swear there's a group for literally
everything.
Anything. Like, you've got an interest, you're
gosh.
thinking about an idea.
You go down a rabbit hole on
Big
Facebook
time.
with all these groups.
Big time.
Yeah.
And in 2018, I feel like they weren't quite as spammy as they can be today.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially in the podcasting niche, there was a lot of really good information, great connectivity that was happening in the Facebook groups. And it was actually through a Facebook group that I met Bryant.
Oh, no way. I had no idea.
Yes. Because he posted some poll or something like, what do you think about podcasts? And one of them was like, I need to start one or something. Like, why are you here, basically? And it was through my response to that query that him and I, carried on some additional correspondence. And he said, well, that's what my whole business is. Like, I help people like you set up your podcast. He's like, it's about 4 months of desk work, setting up the structure, identifying what you gotta the same way you would launch a brand, right? You gotta go through like, what is our mission? What is our value? What is our purpose? What is our criteria?
Right. So you're not just getting behind a mic and just talking gibberish.
Yeah. And I read a stat too, me and my stats, the way I start my morning.
Of course.
I think it's about 12% of the podcasts that are on air today are one episode.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy.
Bryant told me, he's like, anyone who works with me, you are, first of all, no one comes out the gate with one episode.
With one episode.
Yeah, you got to come out the gate with at least 4 episodes. And he said 4 to 10. He goes, but if you are in a position where you can commit to a weekly cadence for publication, 4 is a perfect, like you're coming out with your first month, And I was like, oh, yeah, we'll go weekly. And oh, my gosh, some of the...
Lori, always setting it high.
Oh, yeah.
Always might not have any idea what it really takes, but she's ready. She's always ready.
We're going weekly.
To the highest, not monthly, not bi-weekly. Mm-mm. We're going weekly.
100%. Aren't you glad I said that?
Yeah, for sure.
I know. And so, he taught me a lot during those 4 months where we would work together and build out the structure, the foundation of the show. And then he was like, okay, it's time to record your first 4. And I was like, well, I'll be there. He's like, well, the point of podcasting is you just record it. Like, you don't need, and I was like, oh no, I'm coming to your studio. And so Kristen and I drove down to Nashville. We recorded the first 4 episodes with Bryant in Nashville. Episode 1 it's a joy to listen back to. And Bryant's actually in that one too. And it's, so that's how it began. It just began because I felt strongly and obviously I was onto something. Like, now how many,
crazy.
I think that when we published, there were at least 3 other podcasts that are produce industry niche that published, within the same month that we kicked our show off. I'm very proud to say that today we are the leading podcast library on the entire internet that's fully focused on fruits and vegetables. And it comes back to that commitment. Like, each and every week we're going, and we're going to stay true to our mission. I think that there's only been a couple times where, when my father passed away, we took a small break from the weekly broadcast, maybe just 1 or 2 weeks. I can't remember.
It was just 1 week.
1 week. And then we schedule out a holiday break. Right. The weeks between Christmas and New Year, we do a holiday greeting, and then we take some time off until the New Year episodes begin. And here we are, 200 episodes later. Gosh, since 2018.
Yeah, that's insane.
I know.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to the first episode. It's been a really long time.
And remember when we did episode 100, I got balloons and we thought this was and here we are, it's like the second child. It's like, here we are on episode 200. There's nothing, I didn't get champagne. I didn't get anything. Helena's drinking a cup of water from my fridge dispenser.
Cup, right?
Yeah. And I've got some lukewarm coffee by my side. So here we are.
It's still early, okay? It's still early. But at least we should have had mimosas or something.
I know. I should have thought about that.
Well, you have more podcast recordings, so maybe it's probably
That's true. Today I'm recording a few, which is great. So what should we wrap this up with? I mean, 200 episodes. I feel like in a way, though, Helena, it's just getting started.
For sure. I feel like this episode doesn't even need a wrap up. This is like here we go. Like,
I've got a good one.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Everyone, it would really mean a lot to me if you would rate, subscribe, review.
Yes, yes. And she's saying it all wrong.
Oh, shoot. I don't know how to say that because I'm really, I've gotten so used to making my own way. Like if you don't want to rate, review, and subscribe, then frankly, screw you. That's fine. We're still going to publish every week and I'm still going to do my job and you're still going to learn from this and everything will be fine. But no, I mean, it's true. We need the ratings, the reviews, the subscribers. Share it with your friends. It helps us grow the show. We're really, we do have some exciting, discussions coming up, like maybe even our first show sponsor, which would be amazing.
That would be amazing. So yeah, tons coming up. Mm-hmm. And obviously it doesn't stop here. So just continue to listen. Please share your feedback. We would love it. Lori hates to say it, but subscribe. Keep us growing because this is probably one of my favorite things to do is the podcast.
It's been an extremely worthy journey for me. I will say before we close out, this show has taught me so much. I have learned so much hosting this show because I get to listen and inquire and directly coalesce and conversate with some of the most brilliant people in the world, like not just our industry, but in the world. I mean, the work that we do in agriculture, the work that we do in the food supply chain, the work that we do in technology and food safety, it is brilliant, very important work. This is the essence of life, and fruits and vegetables in a divisive world, they bring us all together, right? Like, absolutely. It's something that every single community, culture, demographic has in common. And it's with that, I just have so much pride in knowing that we've built a great community around such a noble topic.
You said it, girl, community. I love it.
Yes, it is.
Super thankful.
We're very thankful. And for everyone that's been a guest, thanks so much. And with that,
peace out, homies.
Here's to the next 200 episodes.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.